And we're live on Facebook. Hello, everyone. I am back with another interview, and exciting interview of my show, Remote Possibilities. I have another soulpreneur, super inspiring lady with us here today. Whoops, you gotta have to mute that.
Yep. Okay. Here we go. Sorry about that.
No worries.
I'm halfway.
Actually, that was actually me. Apologies. Technical things. Here we go. Okay. Sorry, ladies. Sorry, guys, everybody. All right, let me start again. So this interview here, I have a super special guest for us today, again, for my radio show, Remote Possibilities, where I talk about turning challenges into possibility and helping you find the inspiration and the power to really create your soul-called dream business wherever you're in the world, showing you that anything is possible. And today I have special guest, Teresa Campos here. Hi, Teresa.
Hey,
So exciting to have you. So,
thank
Teresa,
you.
yes. Teresa, I'm going to introduce you briefly and then I'll let you fill in the blanks. Teresa is a super powerful inspirator. I've met her in person from a big coaching program that we're both in. She's an intuitive astrologer and transformation coach. She has like some power-packed inspiration and tools up her sleeve where she helps women who are really knowing already that they are here to make a difference in the world, but they are struggling to embody their mission. She helps them align with their inner superpowers so they can really boldly claim their shine and their power and be who they came here to be and like live their destiny. I totally love your mission. And we have so many parallels, Teresa. Welcome to the show.
Thank
I'm
you.
super excited to have you. Yay.
I'm happy to be here.
Yes, thank you. So before we fully go live, I just want to quickly take a moment and invite anybody, if you're watching this and you know anybody who would also really benefit of this inspiration, please share this along. It is both of our intention here to inspire the world, right? To spread the word about this. This is super powerful stuff that we're sharing. To help people and you like live your dream and access your real power. So if you have a group or your own page or want to invite a friend, just share the video and we will answer any comments that you'll have, any questions, and we will do that after the interview. So that just as a heads up. All right. So now let me give the words to you, Teresa. In your own words, like, can you tell our listeners and viewers just a little bit more about what do you do? How do you do that work? Fill in the blanks of your dream business, what you do today.
Yes, excellent. Yeah, thank you. So just to kind of really get a little bit more clear on what does it mean to embody your mission? And embodying our mission, what I help people do in that is really help them to own that part of themselves that they know that they are here for a reason and a purpose. And, you know, like we know it on a level as a, you know, as a change agent of the world, like we know that we're here to do something great, but we struggle with fully stepping into that, fully stepping into how we are here to serve and who we are here to be. And so what I help people do is I help them to see where their personality or where the lower nature of their ego is getting in the way of their soul contract. Because we all have a contract, right? We're all contracted here on some form of a mission and all for the greater good. So I really help them to recognize that through looking at their astrological chart, because the astrological chart is a blueprint, right? It's a blueprint of the story of their life. It's a blueprint of how things were set up for them in order for them to see their brilliance and to step into their genius. So by me going into the chart, I'm able to help them, just really pick that apart and see how it's getting hijacked in certain areas. Like, how is your masculine not being fully expressed?
Nice.
How is the feminine being tied up? So going in and really looking at that.
Nice. That sounds so fascinating, and I can't wait to go a bit more deeper into those really cool into the superpower that you have to look at it from that angle. It's like a viewpoint that most of us don't have, right? So can't wait to tap into that. But before we go there, I would love to hear a bit more about your story, because I know, like, as my own builder of my dream business, like, there's usually like a backstory that led us to start it, like some hardship in your own life that may have, like, that you now use in teaching, right? So do you want to share a bit more of like what that turning point was for you and how you came to starting that business?
Right. So before I got into the business that I'm in now, I was a cosmetologist. So I was a hairdresser. And I loved what I do. It was a lot of fun. I was very passionate about what I was doing. And I think it was probably about 16 years into doing what I was doing as far as the hair business, my mother was diagnosed with ovarian cancer.
Oh, wow. Mm-hmm.
And so that came as a huge shock. It came as a huge shock to myself and my whole entire family. And it was during that time that it really made me take a step back and look at my life and what I was doing, and was I truly happy, and really was I truly living with joy in my life.
Yeah.
And so it really got me to think about my life, not so much as I'm living it now, but how I want to live it in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And if what I was doing was really what I was here to do. Because it just felt like when something like that happens, when a crisis comes into your life, you begin to ask questions that you've never asked before many times. Many times that happens. Like, what am I here to do? Is there a God? I had been to 12 years of Catholic school, and I still couldn't answer that question. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it just really made me go inward, really for the first time in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was that really catapulted me into beginning to look at other areas of education. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is, picking up a book by Deepak Chopra, picking up a book from Louise Hay.
Mm-hmm.
And then who became my mentor is picking up a book from Carolyn Mace.
Yes.
And so that's that. When I picked up that book, and I happened to read that she was going to be doing a workshop called Sacred Contracts. Okay.
Oh, I love it. Mm-hmm.
I thought, you know what, this is what I need to do. This is the thread I'm going to follow. Nice. So I enrolled in that class a year later. My mother, unfortunately, her life lasted 6 months. So just that intense of an experience really, like, put me on a fast track in my life of going, okay, I need these questions answered for myself, because I can't go on, not knowing, a deeper meaning about my life. So working with Carolyn for 3 years, that really changed my life. And I had no intention of doing any other work other than what I was doing until I started doing the work with Carolyn and started realizing that my astrology background and my work with her with sacred contracts and archetypes were just becoming these two different tools that were just kind of weaving themselves together right before my very eyes. Nice. And then I realized during the last year of my work with her is that my calling was that I was here to help inspire people and help people to find their sacred contract.
Wow, that is so cool.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's what brought me to where I am today.
Mm-hmm. Oh man, what a powerful story. And I'm sorry about your mom, but I love how you highlight that that catapulted you into greatness. It did. How beautiful is that? Wow.
And one thing I always say, Astrid, is that my mother gave birth to my physical life, and my mother gave birth to my spiritual life, because it was in her passing that my spiritual life was born. So for that, I'm very grateful. And I know that was part of her contract as well as mine.
Whoa, that is so beautiful. Whoa. Awesome. So you started your business, you found your calling because your life was shaken up so powerfully. Um, can you share a bit more about you have this piece that you teach people, right, to really step into their shine, and that there is like challenges coming up when we're like at this beginning point, right? Like, was there like a place in your life where you encountered this too, where you're like, okay, I am on this path, but like, how do I step into my greatness? Like, what was that moment, and what helped you to flip that switch and find that power?
Right. Well, yes. And I remember exactly when it happened. I was having a conversation with two other fellow astrologers in a coffee shop. And I had been
Mm-hmm.
struggling to really step into and embody and come out as an intuitive, as an astrologer, because that is something, at least at the time, that was not, no, I should say it this way. It was my own insecurity about really showing up, fully showing up and saying, yeah, this is who I am and this is what I do. And
Mm-hmm.
this is what I believe. Because in doing this kind of work, there's
Yeah.
also a belief system behind
Mm-hmm.
it as well. And so I had been afraid of the
Yes.
judgment that I was going to receive in fully coming out. And so in this
Yes.
conversation in the coffee shop, my one friend said to me, he said, it's your ego. And I'm thinking, no, if anything, it's not my ego. He says, no, Teresa, it's your ego. It's your deflated ego that's running the show here. And it was just like, I had never really thought about how the deflated ego is also can be very narcissistic and wants to run the show, right? And so
Interesting.
it was like, wow, he flipped it around for me.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow, I am keeping myself small because of my
Mm-hmm.
lack of feeling confident, right?
Mm-hmm.
And looking at it
Yeah.
from that place of the deflated ego was also a place of even narcissism, as keeping your gift from the world, keeping what
Mm-hmm.
you're here to do, keeping your brilliance to yourself,
Yes.
right? Because
Right.
really, I'm making it all about me in doing that. And it's not about,
Right.
right? It's not about me. It's not about us.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. So what helped? What when you heard that? I can sense that something already shifted in a big time and just kind of like catapulted you forward. Was there something else that you discovered for yourself, like that you now use in with your clients in how to flip that switch to the power?
Right, right. Yeah. And so that is where my astrology work comes in. And
Mm-hmm.
so I look at it very archetypically, not just from the perspective of astrology and the signs, because all the signs really define an archetype.
Yes. Oh.
So
Mm-hmm.
take for instance the simplest one, and it's the main archetype or the main archetype or sign of the chart, and that's the sun.
Mm-hmm.
And just like in as we're living here on this earth, it's like the sun that is what helps things to grow. It's what gives us energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the sun is our biggest light. And so in the astrology chart, the sun represents self, and it is also our biggest light. It is self. It's the hero of the chart. And all of the signs in the chart, all of the planets are here to serve the sun in some way.
Hmm.
Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
that's where I begin to focus, as I focus on, that's a masculine energy.
Mm-hmm.
And so our masculine is about our beingness. It is action, but it's also our beingness. Who are we here to be?
Nice.
And
Yeah.
so when we can brave our sun, when we
Mm-hmm.
can brave our masculine and step into our masculine, then that is us shining our light.
You know, that's so interesting that you say that. I recently actually went through something similar where I realized I needed to fuse my divine feminine and like inner divine masculine. And like, if we're only in this like loving space of uh, compassion and being, like, then we're not moving forward. And if
Right.
we're only in that masculine space of hustle and doing, then we're kind of like not shining our soul light. So I can
Right.
fully relate to what you're saying, and like I love that you do this work. And I want to highlight quickly to all of you listeners who are not familiar with that work yet, we're really talking about inner game stuff,
Right.
and a little bit of, for some of you, it may seem a little bit out there at first. But I want to share with you as one of the people who's doing that kind of work and getting coaches for myself. And so much of it is in our dream business, and growing is inner work and releasing all those things that are in our way or are not serving us anymore. And so I love that you, Teresa, you give that clarity. In your superpower, it's like bringing those sacred contracts to the light and looking at your astrology work. You'll give the clarity of like, this is where you can work, right? And this is what you can do. Is that how it works for you? Like you have it laid out, and then people can see where their challenges may be. Exactly. And what they can do. Cool.
Exactly. And then just to add to what you just said in what you said about the feminine. So the feminine is our divine feminine is our sacred substance. And what I mean by that is our thoughts, our feelings, and all of that information, right, that we need in order to express our masculine. It is needed with the feminine. So it's like being able to be in harmony with both of those energies within ourselves.
Yeah.
And so that's what, in doing a chart, what I really try to help people to differentiate within themselves. It's like, it is important for us to own both of those energies within ourselves, whether we're masculine or feminine, because they're both separate parts, but need to work together equally, as equal.
Yeah.
Yes.
I love it. Do you have an example for those watching and listening who aren't fully familiar with that? Like, before you had that knowledge, like, how was your life playing out for yourself? Like, do you have an example of like, oh, I wish I would have known that back then, and like, this is what happened, but it could have been like this. Do you have like a before and after example that comes to mind?
Right. Well, okay, this is what comes to mind. If I put it in the context of astrology, and we're looking at, like, let's say our sun sign and then our moon sign, because we all have a moon sign as well. And the moon represents our feminine, and it represents our security system, and where we feel, when we feel triggered or when we feel threatened in some way, we are no longer expressing our sun. We're no longer expressing our true self, right?
Nice. Yes.
We go into the child being animated, and then the victim takes over. So then we're in our moon sign. So we're in this feminine part. We're kind of in the dark feminine. Where reactivity is just running the show. And this is all unconscious energy for us. And, for myself, Astrid, it's like when I learned the difference between conscious and unconscious reactivity in our body, of how that plays out, and how my moon sign, me being in my moon sign when I'm in the unconscious, and how that runs the show so many of the times, and I'm not able to express my sun, that was huge for me. That was like an epiphany for me. To understand that.
I love it. That is so huge. And I love that that we're having this conversation, because like you're saying, a lot of these things run invisibly.
Yes.
And it takes some time to become aware of, hey, I'm actually holding myself back, and hey, I'm not fully in my power. And so I'm basically not moving forward in expressing myself and creating my dream life and dream business. And I have a super mundane example. It's the word procrastination, right? It can be like, can show up as one of those things, like where you're like, instead of doing what helps you move forward, you may like clean your kitchen or under the fridge or whatever. And like things that are totally irrelevant, right? So
and so I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's something in our chart. When we look at our moon sign, whether it's an earth, fire, air, or water, we are going to do those certain things. Like an earth moon is going to clean their house.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So it's funny that you say that. They're going to clean their house. They're going to go shopping. They're going to need to do something active in order for them to avoid their feelings. And that's all, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yes. And so that's the beauty. That's what I love about the tool of astrology, because it's such an amazing tool to really pinpoint tendencies that we have, personality tendencies that we didn't even realize that we had. It's not about prediction, you know, that could be an aspect of it, but that's not how I use the tool. I use the tool as really a psychological tool and a transformational tool.
I love that. I'm glad that you
Yeah.
highlighted that, because I know like there's so many ways and that people get in contact with astrology. And I know my first touch point was like the newspapers, like, oh, here's your horoscope. And for the longest time, I was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like, how is that going to tell me anything about myself? And so, yeah. So so you use it like in the context of psychology. That is super powerful. I have a question for you, actually. So one of my things that came to me, I had my birth chart read to me once in astrology, and that was super powerful. And is that like something similar that you do? Like you do the birth chart and you lay out like what's in the stars for you, like for your life, or do you look at astrology for people in the present moment and then take it from there?
Right. Yeah. So every astrologer goes about their readings differently. And for me, it was more of how I do my astrology readings was the way in which spirit directed me to do them.
Sweet.
So let's say you were to give me your information, right? And so when you give me your information, what you have done energetically is you've given me permission to enter into your contract.
Okay.
So as the reader, I sit down with the chart before I meet somebody, and I open the door and I start to look at the overall view of the chart. I look at the present themes, where things are transiting, where planets are transiting presently. And so where areas of their life are being, the light is being shined on that area. So then we look at the theme of what that is. So in that area, there's always an opportunity for growth. And when I say opportunity for growth, kind of what I'm saying is where there seems to be a struggle right now in their life, right? And so where the focus is, and this is where life is saying, this is where we want you to transform. This is where we want you to evolve yourself. So I look at that overall theme. And then I also look at other points in the chart that give their like Dharma points of where, like, you know, let's say somebody having cancer at the top of their chart. It's like cancer is the archetype of mother. It's here to create community. So it's like those little points that begin to give reference to, you know, part of somebody's like purpose, like what is their greater calling here, right? So I look at that, and then I start to go into looking at the personality of, okay, let's look at the story. You know, I can see things like, well, father was present, mother was present. You know, there was a hard aspect here where there was a struggle and conflict between either mother or father or both. So I go in and start to talk about what I call the mother complex and the father complex. And that is where our potential, like our unlived potential, is living in those places, right? And it lives in the chart.
That is so cool. Go ahead.
You know, and just a kind of another little quick piece here is I just recently experienced the death of my father back in 2017. So it hasn't been that long. And I spent a lot of time with him very closely in, you know, this last year of his life. And what I observed about his, you know, his, I'm going to say waning, like as the moon wanes and wax, the waning is as we get smaller. So as his energy began to get smaller, I could feel how my energy was wanting to grow, how life was like, it's like what was dying in him metaphorically was beginning to be birthed into me.
Wow.
And so that is what I'm talking about when I say us braving our sun. That is us stepping into that masculine, us stepping into that unlived potential. Because because no matter what our legacy is with our parents or whoever raised us, whoever those parental figures are, you know, I mean, we never reach a sense of like potential is ongoing, right? For all of us, like at the end of our life, it's like, it's not that we failed, but we're always in potential.
Yeah.
And so that carries to each generation. Right? Yeah. So it gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yes. I
Yeah.
love it. And I love that we're having this conversation of inner empowerment, like, because, and what better place do you have, like when you create your dream business, which is like following your soul calling,
Right.
then all these things do come up, right? So
Right.
it's part of the roller coaster, but also, like you say, like the opportunity of those things that are like the things that have held us back. So I love that you're doing this. And let's do another glimpse of your other aspect of your work. We talked about the astrology part, and you gave like the juicy view on how you play with those superpowers that you have. You also have the transformation coach side. So can you give an example when somebody comes to you who really wants, like a woman who wants to make a difference, and you gave her a reading, like how do you take her further if she sees her challenging points, for example? What's your work as transformation coach?
Right. So what we do is we like what I had said earlier is that we look at what are the challenging points, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
and then we begin to move through that through, let's say, different archetypes in looking at
Mm.
like our victim,
Yeah.
right? Our
Okay.
victim, which is really one of the most powerful archetypes that we have.
Hmm.
And seeing where we can take even more responsibility for our own choices, right, in our life, and just take responsibility for even our story, like how
Yeah.
is the
Nice.
story here to empower me. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what we look at. Instead of looking at the wound of the story, we look at the wisdom and the learning of the story.
Ooh, that is so smart. That, that makes me think of fairy tales. It's like you're the
Mm.
wizard who gives the wisdom that you need to
Right.
to get from like struggling and being stuck to like find your power and your sword and move forward.
Yeah. And I love working with, the different archetypes, whether it's astrology or just archetypes in general. Let's say it's the victim, or, one of my favorite archetypes to talk about is the prostitute. And
Hmm.
so the prostitute archetype is where we negotiate our power.
Oh,
Okay.
wow. I
Okay.
love it.
So we will
Hmm.
prostitute ourselves
Hmm.
because we do not believe, we do not trust ourselves enough. We
Hmm.
don't have enough, we don't feel we have enough self-esteem on some level to trust ourselves that we
Yes.
can, you know, do whatever task as it is in front of us. So therefore we will say, okay, you know what? I don't feel that I can, and I did this in my relationship at one point. I did not feel that I could take care of myself financially. So I prostituted myself in the relationship because I didn't trust myself to be able to do it. And I stayed longer than I wanted to stay. So that's one example of how the
Gotcha. Yes.
prostitute can show up in our lives.
Yes, yes, yes. I have another example too. And I started my business at the beginning, and I didn't have the confidence. I was comparing myself to others.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would basically give my power away in the sense of like, oh, they know better, or I have to do things their way, or I have to do that. And that created a dependency, I guess, like where I was not even looking for my inner wisdom, and
Right.
I wasn't even looking for my inner power until I started like, claiming that power and like saying, yes, like I want to find this and I want to figure this out. And for me, it was like working with coaches like you and accessing my own best wisdom and intuition that gave me access to that power. And I feel you have so much to give with that. How do you work with clients? Like do they come to you and then you do private coaching, or do you
Right.
have coaching, group coaching, or is it longer, several months, or can you give an example?
Yes. So what I do is I have I do one-on-one coaching, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I do like a 6-month program,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel that at least 6 months is a good time frame for people to be able to really work through some of their challenges that they're currently dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
And so my calls are usually 3 times a month for an
Mm-hmm.
hour over
Yeah.
the course of 6 months. And
Mm-hmm.
then I'm just now I'm putting together a 9-month program that I'm really
Mm-hmm.
excited about. And I was on a call this morning with another one of my amazing colleagues,
Yeah.
and she really is really helping me to really bring this 9-month program into either it can be an individual coaching program or a
Yeah.
group program, which I think can
Mm-hmm.
be very powerful in working in groups.
Right.
So
Yeah.
yeah, and so the programs, one of them is really like empowering ourselves through our shadow. That's one of
Mm-hmm.
the subjects or
Ooh,
one of
that's
the
very cool.
themes. And the other one is what I said earlier, is Braving Your Son. So yeah, so those are now, they're in working mode right now that I'm putting together, but I'm excited about those.
That sounds super exciting.
Yeah.
Teresa, we're unfortunately already at a time that we have to wrap it up. That was so quick. But where can people find you online to connect and learn more?
Yeah, so they can find me online at Teresa, and that's Teresa with no H, Campos.com.
Awesome.
That's my website, and you can contact me for actually a free 50-minute no-cost consultation.
Nice.
Yeah.
That is awesome. Yeah. Thank you so much, Teresa.
You're welcome.
So I'm wrapping up the official interview, but for those who are live on Facebook, I feel inspired to ask one more question. Well, okay, let's do the younger self one. Like, what power tip would you give your younger self before you knew all these things? The most precious gem to get empowered to flow forward.
Okay. What would I give my younger self to empower myself forward, not knowing what I know now? Is that the question that you're asking?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I would say to follow your passion.
Yeah.
Because when I have followed my passion, Astrid, even in going into the hair business where I was afraid to tell my parents that I didn't want to go to college, I wanted to go to beauty school, but I followed my passion, and it every time I do that, it has just been amazing for me.
Yes.
Every time.
I can relate to that. And that's the only path forward, I feel. Everything else is just like detours that lead you not to happiness. And like things aren't better, even if they seem safe.
Right.
They're just dry. Yeah, I left all kinds of things behind to follow my passion repeatedly.
Right. Could I say one more thing about that?
Yes.
Because I want to just differentiate between why I did not say follow your heart.
Oh, do tell. Okay.
Because if we're you asked me about my younger self. So in my younger self, following my heart would have meant that I was following maybe a codependency within my heart.
Interesting. Okay.
Right? Because the heart, when it has not developed in a way to be self-sufficient on its own, it is taking cues from other outside sources on how it feels. Okay. So that's why I say follow your passion, because your passion is yours. If you're really honest with your passion, it's yours.
Sweet. That's like an extra level of power. I love it. Wow, that gives you something to ponder. I feel it's like processing in my head. I love it. Very cool. Well, thank you so much, Teresa. I feel we're going to talk more. And everybody, if you enjoyed this, please share it along. If you have any questions to Teresa or me, post them on Facebook. We will get to all comments. Tag us or message us directly on Facebook. I make sure that everybody can find you there, Teresa, hashtag you, whatever the word is. Yeah. And so closing it with the inspiration to follow your passion wherever you're at. Anything is possible. Just keep walking, and don't think you have to do it alone. I always get coaches for myself. I have my dream team. Keep walking and empower yourself to really live your dream. I love it. Okay. Thank you so much, Teresa. We'll talk again soon. And bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.